offensively, how key are those two tackle outposts, I guess, on the edges to help both pass protection and run?
In college football, the defensive ends have gotten so much bigger and stronger, and they're really active, and in the run blocking on those wide ends, and certainly protecting the quarterback. For everybody, pretty much, no matter what your offense is, you've got to be able to hold those guys off, and it's very important. You know, we went through a phase last year where we were real average at those positions, and it makes it difficult to move the football.
When you look at how Mason has progressed since the spring, is there an area or two that stands out the most to you?
Well, in the last 2 or 3 practices, he's been good with getting the ball in the hands of the players that the defense is allowing us to take advantage of offensively. And I think that's the most important part of his progress in his second year. He'll make some plays, he's going to make some mistakes, but he needs to minimize those by not trying to make too many big plays. Just take what they give him.
Are there some not so obvious guys that are starting to get your attention, Mike?
Oh, there's guys that are making plays out there. We've got a couple freshmen that have shown up and made a play or two. Carr's making some plays. Michael Hunter, we knew about him. He's older. He's showing up and making some plays. The times I've watched him, he seems to be playing really fast. So I look at the list here. Blake Jarwin, you guys obviously know about him, but he's shown up and made some plays. Dylan Harding's running around better. You know, we had to play him as a freshman last year, and he was 178 pounds. Now he's 190. I like what he's doing out there. So there'll be some guys. The biggest jump, takes place from that 10 to 20 in that area there, practice-wise.
You mentioned Carr a couple of times earlier this week and just now. Is he a guy that you can see, whether it's returning kicks or whatever, making an impact? I mean, it seems like when you signed him, he was small and just automatically, a lot of us might have thought redshirt candidate. But
and I think most people thought with his size that he would be a guy that would redshirt. But as he progresses up through the next 8 or 10 practices, if he's able to absorb information and function out there with the team, stay healthy, and give you the ability to make a big play, then you have to look at putting him out there. And we'll know a lot more in a week or so, but up to this point, he's doing fairly well.
Mike, talk a little bit about team leadership, and it's got to be different with a young quarterback that's just coming into his own. And how do you go about developing team leadership?
Mason's still real young, as you mentioned, but he's pretty far along in a leadership role for his youth. Crabtree, Ryan Simmons, Shepard, even Washington, Seaton, Ogbaugh, Seth, Peterson, Lampkin, those guys. It takes everybody to carry the group. It's obviously important that your quarterback is a player that can help lead, but unlike last year where we had so many young players that hadn't had a lot of experience and success, like even as good as Ogbaugh was last year when we started the year, he wasn't really in that role. He was somewhat unknown. And so we've got a number of guys now that have stepped up and are allowing us to have a good team chemistry and are helping lead the team.
Talk a little bit.
Oh, go ahead.
Talk a little bit just about the high points of what you expect out of those guys to call them a team leader.
Well, just their practice habits, the way they communicate with the players, their attitude in the locker room, at the apartments where they live, in the training table. Those guys have to do a good job when the coaches aren't around, and that's really important. And when you have an extremely young football team that's not experienced, they don't know how to lead themselves at times, much less others. And so that's really where we expect them to help us with the team as coaches, we're going to push them hard and try to put them in situations that are not comfortable, and they have to react in the right way and accept that responsibility, and making sure the team understands that if you stay the course and you buy in, then good things are going to happen to everybody in our team. That's really what we expect from guys that are trying to lead.
Along the lines of what he's asking, Mike, I saw you went over and talked to Zach Robinson and his family. He was at practice today. Bill Haston did the story this summer. Both your top two quarterbacks, Mason and J-Dub, went down and worked with Zach at his academy now in Dallas. What's your comfort level? Because they're going to work with a guy who's been in their shoes. Does that help?
I think so. That certain former players have the ability to teach and instruct and coach, in my opinion. I think there's a number of people out there that really aren't fit for the development of young people that are at this level. There's a considerable difference in training J.W. Walsh compared to training a 10-year-old. And Zach is a self-made player. He was, I don't know if we had stars back then, but he wouldn't have been much more than a 2-star. And he had come in and worked hard, and he maximized his potential and was a student of the game. He's very intelligent. And so he can pass that on. And I think it's beneficial for our players to be around a former player like Zach, who will do it for all the right reasons.
Mike, you bring in a large number of new offensive assistants. How has Mike Yursich done in taking all their different backgrounds and their ideas and kind of blending it all together? And is that a difficult job to do?
Well, it can be difficult, but we have a philosophy that I guess I believe in here, and Mike bought in, and so we're getting input from them within our system. And our terminology changes some each year, but the philosophy is the same based on where we think our strengths are. We will try to play to Mason's ability and then find out what our options are at the running back position and with wideouts and Seaton and Jarwin, and then try to manufacture as much as we can with that group. And I haven't, in fact, I'm almost sure we haven't had any issues with too much information coming in. And he has been a good manager of personnel in the room because there's been some turnover. And that's not the easiest situation to be in, but I think he's done a really nice job up to this point.
This is going to be the first year in a number of years where you don't have that inside receivers coach. Is there a benefit to having all those guys under one voice, one leader in Casey Dunn?
You would like to have two coaches, but we also would like to have somebody that coaches the Cowboy back. And so we had to make a decision on where we were at. And Casey's been here a number of years now. And so I guess I'm comfortable with him handling that position. And then I felt it would be an advantage for us to have somebody with the Cowboy back that is involved in more of the interior of the offense. And I thought we had lost that perspective a little bit. So we felt like it was a step up for our offense to have an inside guy and then let Casey handle the outside players. If he hadn't been here so long, we may not have made that adjustment.
Does this defense have the chance to be the best since your time here?
If we can get good defensive tackle play, we're not very experienced at that position. If we have some young guys contribute, and Vince and Mote can hold their own in there and develop. If we stay healthy, the depth that we have will allow us to play with a lot of speed, which in most cases it means more turnovers. And we do have experience at those positions now compared to what we were out there with young players. So we have a chance to be pretty good on defense. We should be able to run, and we have guys that are experienced tacklers. So I'm really excited about watching them play, and their practices and their aggressiveness has been good up to this point.
How much does it help to have the defensive ends and the corners you have?
Well, it's a big time bonus for us. For the first time, we're too deep at the corner spot, and with Ogbaugh, I would think that there'll have to be some adjustments made on offense to know where he's at on the field. We have to when we compete against him in practice. We have to know where he's at. So unless the teams that we're playing are a lot better at tackle than we are, in most cases they have to identify him, be aware of where he's at on the field, which means the other guys are going to get single blocks most of the time. So that's an advantage when you have an end like him that can make plays. And Jimmy Bean's been around forever and is bigger, and his attitude's been great over the last year. And so he should be able to contribute on the other side.
Mike, at the Caravan the other night and then today, I spoke with people about the Bedlam punt return and me know the impact of it. And this being your 25th year of OSU football, how do you define that play? I mean, it seems like, at least in my mind, there's the Rashawn Woods touchdown at Norman, and then there's the punt return. In terms of plays that had great meaning at the moment, but had value that extended way beyond that. How do you define and remember that?
Well, I would agree with that. Those two plays, we talk about games or series or players, but those two plays had a big impact on our football team and Oklahoma State with playing down there with Woods and being big underdogs, and then obviously with Tyreek making a big play at the end. And so they're huge plays for us. I don't think there's, I'd be crazy to stand up here and say anything else. And they did a lot for the mental aspect of our team, as you know, and lifted a lot of people's spirits and changed demeanor and attitude, and we're obviously big-time football plays for Oklahoma State football.
But in the 10 or 12 seconds from the time, maybe the pump was kicked until he hit the end zone. I mean, what was that experience like for you? And were you too busy looking for flags to really kind of savor the moment,
Well, at first I was hoping that he could somehow get the ball in his hands, and then crossed me up a little bit when he caught it on the other side of the field. So then I started looking for some sort of what I would call a lead blocker to get him started. And then when he broke free, I had a really good feeling he could go because obviously he's so fast. And then you start looking for flags, and from that point on, then we just started talking about getting a stop and playing defense and overtime.
Does it change or add anything to fall camp when you know that game one is a true road game?
Not really. The Thursday night game adjusted our schedule a couple days, but because we're traveling a little further than what we're accustomed to, we'll leave a few hours earlier on that Friday prior to that game, or now it would be on Wednesday prior to that game. But for the most part, it won't change what we do.
Mike, next week is the last week of camp because you'll have school starting on the 17th. There's three two-a-day days I think you've got on practice plan. If the heat stays the way this is, will you come out of this camp feeling, not that you don't feel they're in shape now, but feeling pretty good maybe about their mental toughness against the weather, and they're going to get tested this week?
They're holding up really well. We have an advantage with our facility. We have them outside, and we really push them to the limit, and then we bring them inside and finish practice. Myself and Coach Glass and Kevin and the medical staff and Bill Clay and Darryl Wyatt and some guys that are watching practice, we're trying to keep an eye on the players and get a good feel for where they're at. And, we have the GPS system involved now where we're tracking them, and we can get a feel for where their bodies are. So we're using the indoor, and the advantage we have, I think the question you're getting to is we're going to have enough heat to push them to the limit. We've had some two-a-days or some preseason practices before where it was a little cooler than we wanted because we weren't sure we could push them. But this is allowing us to push them and then bring them back inside and revitalize them with fluids and things. So I'm really happy with where we're at. We've got 2 more days of this, and then it's going to drop down into the low 90s, which will be fine. Because if it gets down there and it's a little cooler, we can just leave them outside longer. We now have that flexibility with our indoor facility.
Mike, being that you bring back a more experienced core on offense, are you hoping to get your tempo back up to where it used to be when you were going really fast? And do you have a number of plays per game that you kind of want to aim for?
Well, we'd like to play the entire game that way. And we should be able to play faster now that we're more experienced. Quarterback has a better feel for it. Our offensive line played as big a role of that as any last year, because if you go fast and they're confused in what they're doing, then it doesn't look very good. So we should be able to play faster. And our goal is to get 80 plays in a game, and if things go well and we're hitting on all cylinders and our scheme is good, then we'll hit 90.
It's a small sample size with Mason, but his ability to extend the play by shaking off a tackle or sidestepping a defender seems to be a point of strength with him. How important is that, and how much have you seen him maybe develop in that area?
Well, he's done a good job of it in the 3 games he's played, and he was doing that at 218 pounds, and he's 228 now, so he's obviously stronger and a little more experienced. And what I hope for is that he continues that, because that's not really something you can coach. The guys can either escape and get away or make a play, or they can't. So hopefully he'll continue to do that.
There was a lot of talk during bowl prep and then again during the spring about the momentum that you got from that game in Oklahoma, and then what you got in the bowl. You said you felt like throughout spring you could still sense it, and that you were still getting benefits from it as it carried through all the way to now.
Sure. It's, we live in the age of technology and media resource and internet, and there's so much communication that the advantage of when things are going good, it just continues to carry on. And the world we live in with phones and the information that the players get, and our fans like that are here today at Fan Day, they all have apps, and they get, every time there's information that comes out about a player or us as coaches or our team, it comes up on their phone, and so it makes them feel better. And that's carried over, and there's just a good attitude among the team and the people involved with Oklahoma State football, and I think all the fans.
You played a number of true freshmen last year out of necessity, some of it. For a variety of reasons, looks like your depth's better at positions. Is there any temptation to maybe redshirt some of those guys that played last year now?
Sure. We've talked about that. And until we get up until that last week, we won't plan on that. But if we get to the last week and we have a young man that we used his freshman year, and he's behind a couple veteran guys, and his numbers could be limited, then we wouldn't burn him on special teams and use him at a point in the game where he may be able to get that year back, which would help him from a maturity standpoint and would help us. And those discussions have taken place, sure.
What are those discussions like? Because if a guy's played as a freshman, he probably wants to play as
Sure. It's us being honest with them, and that they didn't really get that year to develop. What you lose with a young man that doesn't redshirt in his freshman year is he loses that extra time in the weight room, because during the season he's trying to get ready to play in a game, and so he can't devote himself to 4 to 5 days of heavy workloads. His physical workload is limited based on getting ready to play on Saturday, and there's a point where that can almost become a necessity for a college football player to get that extra workload during their time. Doesn't always happen that way, but it's beneficial, and so we're just honest with them. And if a player just said, "Hey, I want to play," then we're going to play him, because ultimately it's their career. But we would offer our opinion on what we think's best.
In
In talking to Robbie Disher, I know you're trying to replace a punter, and you're looking at return guys, obviously, which I know might be a concern. But Disher pointed out that so many of those guys that are coming back that played on the cover units and the return units. How do you see that boosting your special teams play, that you've got the guts, so to speak, of your special teams coming back?
I thought Robbie did a great job last year of coaching special teams. We ended up really high in our league with a lot of young players, and sometimes he would play in a unit on that week with 7 or 8 freshmen. That's hard to do. And so those guys now are mature. And we went over our special teams depth chart. We're going to go over it again in the morning. We'll do it again in a week based on which freshmen we think may actually play, so we can start working them in and getting them some reps in at least one unit of special teams. And we should be better because we have experienced players. And when you have the youth, there's risk. And when you have the experience that we have on those coverage units and return units, they understand, because there's an art to playing special teams. There's guys that have been really good special teams players because they have a feel for it, and they put the time in, and they understand, and taking good angles and walling off a defender and all the little things that are important. And so those guys that had reps last year certainly should be better this fall.
At what point did you really start to kind of recognize the value of grad transfers? Was it immediate for you, or was it after you started getting a couple of those guys going?
Obviously, Tyler Patman did a lot of things for us. And so we realized that if you bring in a player, and I wouldn't know how you would rate it. Let's just say we're rating a player from 1 to 10. And in somebody's opinion, when Tyler came out, if he was a 5, if he comes into our program and he's successful and he feels good about himself and the attitude's good, we can make him a 7 just from that transformation. We're all that way. That's the way we are about everything we do in life. And so then he came in and started playing and got really good, and he was smart, and he started playing multiple positions. Obviously, he's still in camp with the Cowboys now. So he really helped our football team. And at that point, we realized the importance of experience. We've all known that experience is key to a good football team, but now you bring a young man in that's done 2 things. 1, he's played a considerable amount of games in his career at another school. 2, he's already graduated from college. So he's disciplined enough to get to class and graduate, then there's something to be said about him. So we realized that was important. Then we bring Furman in, and it was good for us. And then, we were contacted by Hunter. We get contacted by a lot of people now. And so I guess that's a long answer for the experience and them already being mature enough to graduate gives them a chance to play at this level quicker than a younger player. But you have to have a scholarship. You have to have the numbers and fit the 85 and the NCAA's restrictions and all that. So it's not like you can just bring in a number of them. But if they fit, they're willing to come in and jump in. And our team does a good job of bringing them in and not making them feel like they're an outsider. And so they kind of jump in and do real well early.
So you said 10 years ago you wanted to have the best lifestyle in college football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if in your mind you achieved that, or obviously you're a lot closer now than you were 10 years ago. But is that a big part of what might attract transfer?
Yes.
Is the reputation in that regard?
When you look at what our players have here, and in recruiting, you guys follow it and you see it. Most schools that we play against are building new facilities. Things are new now. Everybody's upgrading. Cost of living's involved. But for us, we have everything in place, and we have a setting where there's coaching and teaching going on, and we understand that we want the players to enjoy their 4 years or 5 years here. We want them to have fun, and we're trying to do everything we can to benefit them when they leave here and not feel like that I was miserable for those 4 years and I'm glad I'm gone. And it's no different than when we were growing up and in elementary and junior high and high school and playing sports or going to class, and we have kids and they have some teachers that are excited about going in and learning, and some teachers they don't want to be around because they give them the impression that it's not fun. So we've tried to create that environment here where our players enjoy it and they have that great everyday college lifestyle. And our administration here, you know, one thing with Coach Holder, and he's always done, is we don't cut any corners when it comes to taking care of our athletes. We maximize every little thing that we can to make their lifestyle better. So we've come a long way in 10 years in developing a great lifestyle for a college football player and student athlete.
So you had a run of 6 years with a back who ran for at least 1,200 yards. And now you got Chris Carson in here as the newcomer of the year in the league. So is 1,200 the standard for the Oklahoma State #1 tailback, or do you not pay attention to that kind of?
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it. A running back can have a good year and not get very many opportunities based on the way they play us. So it's like defensive statistics. And I've said this 2 or 3 or 4 years, and I keep thinking somebody's going to grab it and run with it. They still put up on the TV screen yards per game and average per play or whatever that is, and it's completely opposite of what it should be defensively in statistics. It should be points allowed per possession. And I'm going to get to your answer, but it's like our defense. When we were rolling here offensively in those years, our defensive coaches and our team were facing about 16 or 17 possessions a game. And there's teams in the league, in other leagues, that are only facing 10 or 11 or 12 possessions. So obviously they have a better chance to score points against us than they do against them. Well, it's the same thing with a running back. We struggled last year because of our yards per attempt. I don't know, it ended up like 3.6 or something? 3.5. Okay. So it made me feel worse. But it needs to be up around 5. So the number of times that we attempt to run the ball, if it's around 5, then we're going to be successful. And in most cases, with the balance in our offense and the way it should happen, we'll have a guy or guys that will combine to rush up there around that number. And really, that's kind of the way we look at it.
I mean, how do you feel about Carson having that distinction? And that, I don't know if it's pressure on him because I haven't talked to him about it. I don't know.
You know, he's done really well up to this point. It's way too early. You know, and I mentioned it the other day, and so I'm kind of repeating myself, but Coach Jones used to always say this. We'll talk about him after they've been in 12 or 15 practices and 100 degrees and they've been hit a bunch. Then come and ask me if they can be a running back. Up to now, he's doing good. He's able to absorb information, put it out there in a live setting. He's been hit some, but not a lot. He's been, you know, we haven't pushed him like we're going to push him over the next 10 practices, and we'll see where he's at. He is quick. He does have good feet. And he does have acceleration.
I mean, for what you want a guy to look like in that position.
Yeah, I want to look like him. Have you seen him? Huh? Yeah. I want to look like him, don't you? Yeah. That's what you want to look like. And if he continues on, then what it'll help is it's going to make Rennie better, and it's going to keep Rennie fresh, you know. And then we got to come up with that third back, whether it's Raymond or it's Jeff or whoever it is. And that's what we've done here in the years that we were really good, and that's what we need to accomplish this season.
Like, you have an offensive line that was inexperienced last year, and you lose 2 seniors from that group. How do you see them coming back this year just as a group in terms of, you know, you got a bunch of guys who got that game experience. How do you see that?
Well, you know, earlier we talked about Victor at left tackle, and obviously he hadn't played here, but he's played in a number of college football games, and he's got some talent. So he should help us. Lundblade, who we played last year, that was not ready to play, but played for us, has that experience and is bigger now. He's 295 pounds, I think, somewhere in that area. They had him, well, he's actually up to 310. And then Paul Lewis can play a guard and center spot for us, so he has some experience now. And then we have Crabtree back, that played for us. He missed 4, 5, 6 games during the year, and that really set us back. But he's an experienced player now. And we have Jesse's back in there that played a little bit in the end. Mike Wilson's in there. These are all guys that last year were just thrown in the fire. Now they at least have some experience, and so it gives us a head start on trying to find 7 linemen. We feel like you have to find 7 linemen that can play in order to have a good season and protect your quarterback and give yourself a chance.
Earlier this week, Mike, you put those guys on scholarship, the walk-ons.
Mm-hmm.
When we talked to them, they hadn't phoned home or anything yet. Have you gotten any good feedback from parents?
Sure.
Yeah, what's that like?
Well, it's good. I mean, we all like to give things away, and as a coaching staff, when we have an opportunity to reward those guys from the parents, and all of a sudden now they don't get a tuition bill, they don't get a housing bill, now food, we take care of them now. The NCAA's allowed that, but it's like you still get to do it, and you don't get a bill in the mail, I guess, every month, and so. It's a lot of fun, and I think we're gonna have 1 or maybe 2 left to give before school starts. But we'll have to wait and see how things fall. But it's great feedback from the parents. But they've earned it. The ones that get it, they've earned it. Those guys have put their time in and they've earned it. So it's good that we can reward young men for working hard.
What are you going to do to commemorate your 25th year of Oklahoma State football?
Me? Try to win games and have some fun. I thought about.
Are you aware of that milestone?
There's been times when I jog, and I'm miserable, and I start to think of things to overcome the time, and I start adding years up, and then I get delirious and can't add that high because I'm so tired from running. And I thought about buying some of that shampoo. You put in your hair and it washes the gray out, and that way I could. Not look gray-headed, and then people wouldn't think I'd been here 25 years.
25.
A long time.
Scheduling question. Would you rather be playing in December?
Regular season? There's 2 ways to look at that. When we have the open date over Thanksgiving and we play, I think it's good for our conference. I think it's good for the state. It makes for an interesting game, television, all those things. But it doesn't tie in with the NCAA's recruiting calendar. So if you just look at, they give us, let's just say 14 days to recruit prior to the dead period in December. And if you were selling a product to earn a living, vacuum cleaners, and you had to do that to pay the bills, and somebody came to you and said, listen, you only get 7 days. I know everybody else gets 14, but you only get 7 days to sell vacuum cleaners. It would concern you. You would want to be out selling every day. So that's really what happens. And that's the only way for me to answer that question is if they adjusted the recruiting calendar to fit championship games, other leagues, to fit what our league's trying to do, because I think that the Big 12 office is doing the right thing. It just doesn't fit the way the recruiting calendar is, and so the risk is not good because somebody's going and seeing those guys. That's a contact period. They're seeing them face to face, and we're not there unless we just decide we're going to go out and recruit and not get as prepared as we need to play for that game or be for that game. So it doesn't tie in. That's the only concern I have about it.
If the season goes really well and you're in the hunt for the college football playoff, you won't be able to sell yourself on December 6th or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's that's what I'm saying. And I made this suggestion 3 years ago that they need to adjust the calendar based on what everybody's trying to accomplish. And there's obviously people higher up than me that don't see it that way. But why wouldn't you? Because the teams that are playing at that time shouldn't be cut out of recruiting because they're playing well and winning. And the second, other people will say, well, if you're winning, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it does matter. I mean, it's not as easy as you think. So they need to adjust that calendar to where it fits that weekend for everybody in the country, and just make it set. And then I think that everybody would want to play it that weekend.
You sense any momentum for that?
I don't know, John, because I can't ever tell anymore what anybody's thinking. I don't know where suggestions come from, and it's just hard for me to tell out of those meetings exactly what all's going on.
Mike, when you sit down at your desk every day and get ready to start the day, do you have a major concern that just keeps cropping up, and are you willing to share that?
Concern with what? Well, I'm always concerned about depth at every position. I want us to be in a spot where guys can go out and play hard and stay healthy, and not have to play young players like we did last year, because we want them to go out there and play when they're ready to play. Those are the only concerns I ever have. We have it really good around here. Our system and this place is set up for success. And you always worry about young people in the world today and what's going on. Those things cross my mind all the time, but that's part of what college is a time to make decisions and learn and make mistakes and correct them and keep moving forward. So do I have the concerns that I had when I started here 11 years ago? No, not anywhere near.
Mike, we saw on Twitter earlier today that Victor Irakanzi, if I'm saying that right.
Irakanzi. I just learned it a few days ago myself. It's difficult.
But he had sent out a message that because of health reasons that he had to give up football. Was that something that you were aware of? And when you hear news like that, I mean, that's got to be a kind of a tough blow.
Mm-hmm. Victor's had some unfortunate situations health-wise since he's been here. And it seemed like every time he'd get healthy, something would happen. And unfortunately, not everybody's made to play college football, and he is a really good person that's worked hard and rehabbed and got hurt and worked hard and came back and got hurt again. And I felt like that he was going to be out for the season, and so I was really aware of it. Had not been confirmed. I'm like you guys. I'm finding things out online now prior to actually getting the information, which is okay, I guess, as long as the information's accurate. But they must have notified him today. Is that when that came out? The doctors must have notified him, so we'll put him on a medical scholarship, and he'll be able to graduate. In fact, I think he's going to graduate at the end of the year. But it's always tough when a young man gets injured and can't come back and play. Good? All right. It's an easy crowd.